Welcome to CG Live. If you're ever wondering what's going on at Christ Greenfield, this is a place that you have to be. We're having amazing conversations like the one today because we're heading into Confirmation and Reformation Sunday. I get a chat with Pastor Michael about how awesome it is to be a Christian and a Christian in a Lutheran tradition. Before that, here's our weekly connection announcements. First off, again, Confirmation service is this Sunday at the 10:45 service at the Gilbert Campus. I believe we have 33 confirmation students who are being confirmed, family, friends, come to that service. So we will not have the normal 10:45 contemporary service in the Life Center at Gilbert. Instead, you can come to celebrate us, or if you're like, I want to do the normal contemporary, you can go to either East Mesa at 10 or come to the Gilbert campus at 9 o'clock. All the other service times will be exactly the same, just 10:45. It will be a confirmation, powerful celebration moment. Second announcement, Meet the Pastor coming up on Sunday, November 3rd. If you're new around here, this is for you. It's a casual lunch where you'll learn about our mission, our values, our vision, while connecting with other folks who are kind of dipping their toe into the Christ Greenfield waters. This is a great opportunity to explore your next steps, grow in faith, and find your place in our awesome community. Praise God. Find more details in the link below. CG School, we have a job opening. Extended care help is needed. We're urgently seeking two additional people to work in our extended care on Wednesday afternoons. There are two time options available, 2:30 to 5:30 or 3 to 4 p.m. That's in the afternoon, obviously. So if you're interested, please let Tiffani Spicer, our preschool director, know. tspicer at cglschool.org. And with that, stay tuned for our CG Live conversation. Welcome to CG Live. Pastor Tim Allman here with Pastor Michael Hayden. We're celebrating Reformation and Confirmation.
Let's go.
Here at Christ Greenfield. And what do you remember, Pastor Michael, about your confirmation?
It's sheer terror.
Really?
It was old school where
do?
we had to stand in front of the congregation and answer questions.
So did I.
Now, they did modify it where like they gave you like 10 to 15 questions that could be asked of you. So rather than like knowing the whole catechism, you're like, just know this section. But it could be anyway, fair game, these 15 questions, you just sit there sweating like red stole.
Was it on Sunday?
It was on a Sunday, yeah.
During the service?
Yeah.
How many other confirmands were
There were, I think there were about 10 to 15 of us. So fairly big, but not like huge class. So questions were coming your way. Yeah.
You get grilled. I had 4 confirmands.
Oh,
with
gosh.
Me. Small little church, El Paso, Texas, Ascension Lutheran, and Dad's just grilling us. And I memorized literally the entire thing. Because he would go, he'd then skip around. It wasn't like in an order because you're like, okay, what's this next? No.
You couldn't anticipate.
All the chief parts all of the questions. The whole thing was fair game. I probably have never studied, that's maybe, up to that time, I had never studied harder.
Quite like that? Yeah.
Quite like that. Amazing. So for those of you who do testimonies today, you're getting off quite easy, young people. Nonetheless, you should memorize, because what's the heart, let's just move to Reformation. What's the heart of kind of our Reformation theology as you think about it?
Really, because my mind's on the small catechism, the way Luther set up the small catechism was law and gospel, right? Because he starts with the commandments, then moves into like, the other parts, especially like, the sacraments and stuff. And so really that is the heart of it, because where Luther was, like with the Catholic Church, is like all law. There's like no good news. Not good. And so really like the gospel, the good news really became like the centerpiece of the Reformation. You see that like even in the catechism itself.
Have you ever thought it's kind of weird that we celebrate like a dude and a time and the pounding of the 95 thesis, October 17? No. Was it October 31st? Yeah, it's Halloween.
Yeah.
And but then I started to think, well, maybe it's not so much, because there were times when God worked that the people of God remembered.
Right.
Not that this is commensurate necessarily with Passover, but to a degree it kind of is. It was a turning point in history where God worked in a beautiful way to point us to his promises. Anything more to say about?
Yeah, you do have these pivotal moments in history that really change, especially Western civilization, and like that's one of those moments that God would use like simple monk
Yeah.
named Luther, and I remember listening to this. Her name was Phyllis Tickle. She would talk about like,
Tickle.
isn't that a fun last name?
I love it.
Creaking doors. Like every 500 years, there's these like big turning points in history, and like if you map it out, the Reformation was like one of those huge turning points, and it was.
I think we'll look back over kind of Western civilization, and I think we're living in a turning point era right now.
It is 500 years after the Reformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the turning point event will be the global pandemic.
When they look back, yeah.
Yeah. And how it was kind of a dividing line between where is your confidence and hope going to be found. Have you heard that Generation Z is trending like very, very conservative, not just like politically, but even like religiously? Spiritually too? Like these are high schoolers today.
Yeah.
Like they're recognizing the fraud of a lot of like the technology and even the surveillance state, which is now, and they're like, I don't know that all of this is good. I don't know that AI has my best intentions. While there's some beauty to it, I think they're kind of wising up and looking for something more substantial.
Right.
And I think COVID historically is going to look back and be a turning point
for that.
to two different directions. Like it's going to be very easy to look back and see light and dark, perversion and truth.
Yeah.
Any comments there? The
Yeah.
times in which we live?
Well, I think I think, especially as Lutherans, for this generation and kind of where they're at, we have we've always had a lot to offer, but we have a lot to offer, and a lot of it has to do just with the way we think, especially theologically. It's like pre-modern. It's like how theological, like we're good with mystery and paradox and those types of things. And I think this generation is post-modernity, which has been a term for a long time, but it does open up the door for like the truth and good news we have, because they too are good with paradox, mystery, spiritual things. And so, yeah, it's a great time to be the church.
I think it's a great time to be a Christian from a Lutheran tradition because of our comfort with mystery, paradox, tension. What are two or three of like the main Lutheran teachings? If you think someone comes up and they say, "Hey, you got a elevator pitch on confessional Lutheranism," where do you go?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Probably under the umbrella of like law, gospel, that type of dynamic is two kinds of righteousness. I think it's like the most helpful theological tool in our tool belt, which I don't know if we have time to reach out to me if you want to learn more about two kinds of righteousness, because it's just so beautiful and powerful, and really that centers in on the gospel. And then two, I would say just like the sacrament and how we handle it. I think those are just centerpieces for our church body, but also some of the most precious things we can offer to the world.
Yeah. Our radical dependence upon the Word of God.
Right. Yep.
And we don't want to say any more or any less. Like we're not going to use reason and logic to explain, get God off the hook.
Right.
Yeah. One way or another. And then I think law and gospel is a wonderful handle. Two kinds of righteousness: how we're made right in our relationship with God by grace through faith, and then how we live in right relationship with God's creation, with our neighbor. Yeah. And it flows down, like the grace of God comes down, and then it mobilizes us for love and good deeds. But it doesn't go back the other way. This is the struggle. It doesn't mean that the more good works we do, this proves our righteousness before God. It's not about works, but it is about response to faith, living righteous lives in light of the world. So that's one thing that Luther spent a lot of time focusing on. And then I would say our deep desire, and this can become an idol of sorts, but for learning, for knowledge, right? Yeah. For being right, and you can be right in all of the wrong ways. So we can have a Pharisaical tendency in the LCMS and Lutheranism, confessional Lutheranism in general, to think that our righteousness is found through understanding the right things about God and having all of these paradigms. And if you don't have the right paradigm, then you're obviously not a good Lutheran, and those types of things. Anything more to say about how we could fall off on the other side?
Oh yeah. You could definitely see that tendency. I mean, I see it in myself quite a bit, where all of a sudden, I'm cool with like good works not making me righteous, but then I fall into the trap that my right understanding, my right thinking, my right knowledge then is what makes me right and acceptable and more self-righteous than than others. Yeah, it's an easy trap to fall in. Yeah.
And I think Luther was he was warding against that trap too. There was a Reformation, and then there's always kind of a counter Reformation, and he saw the church kind of going too far away from, because it's one thing to say that and this is another thing that Generation Z likes, is deeper history, grounding us in even history connected to liturgy. How did the church kind of function? And basically what the reformers were doing post Luther were moving well beyond. So they were saying anything historical, anything connected to the Catholic Church is to be discarded.
Yeah.
Which is not what he was saying at all.
No.
It's basing your righteousness on these external things that needs to be discarded. But church history, the saints, those who have gone before, even relics appropriately understood, even pilgrimages appropriately understood, all have their place. The sacraments appropriately understood have their place within the church. But the church count, like all of these things, and you kind of see it today in Western American Christianity.
Right.
This is why Lutherans are just kind of weird, because are you Catholic? And we're like, well, kinda. Are you like evangelical Christian? Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, we can be friends. I think we can, if positioned with theological hospitality, I think Lutherans can be kind of a bridge builder between, say, Catholic and charismatic.
Right.
Anything more to say there?
Yeah, I think, again, because we love tension, we do sit in this like really interesting and somewhat difficult spot where we love the deep, rich theological and liturgical like nature that we have. And you're right, young people want to be connected to something bigger than themselves. Yet, because of our like understanding, we also have so much freedom in the way we like worship. So we do end up in this like weird spot, and we can. I think if we're willing to play nice with others, we do, again, just have so much to offer, not only individuals, but like the church at large, especially in America, I
don't think I've ever asked you this question. Do you think you'd be a Lutheran if your parents weren't?
God, you know what? That is a great question. I don't know. I would think so, because growing up, I was always the kid asking, like, why? Why? And, for example, when it came to like baptism and like the understanding I grew up, I asked a lot of questions like why, and when you get older you kind of begin to do your own research, and like went on this journey and ended up exactly where I was. So I think I would, only because I would be doing my own like searching.
You kind of did.
Because I kind of did, and I was like, this is really what I believe, especially on like the major things of like theology, like who Jesus is, what he's done, the sacraments, those types of things. What about you?
Yeah, I think so. You probably did a deeper dive into it than I did. It's hard. It's probably not even an appropriate question, because I don't know me apart from my family.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it just is what it is. So I think I would be. I think I would eventually have discovered conservative, mission-oriented Christianity, and hopefully I would have seen Lutheranism as a strong option along in line. The struggle is I have such an agreeable nature to me to a degree. I mean, I still, people listen to me in terms of podcasts, I do like to talk about kind of controversial things, but I like to do it in a hospitable way. That it may have taken me longer to get there.
Yeah.
Because I would not want to kick other people off the right island. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's we open up where there is a big C church. We actually, if we're gonna be honest, I'm a part of this denomination because I believe, and not just a denomination, but confessing Lutheranism, because I believe it is a true and honest exposition of the scriptures.
Right. Yeah.
So while there is a big C Christian church, like, we're connected to that big C Christian church. And I believe on earth, though no church is perfect, like, this is from a we got our sociological leadership struggles that we're wading through, like probably any denomination does. But from a theological perspective, I believe it's right. That's hard for me to say.
Right.
Because it sounds arrogant.
It does.
But the cool thing about Luther is that hasn't been revealed. I haven't discovered that. Like, that's been revealed by the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. Simply because I think passive faith if we're going to boil it down, passive faith is the best thing ever.
Right.
Meaning I can't actively choose God and his love. What I actively do is rebel against
Correct,
God.
yeah.
But it's his pursuit of me. It's the Father running to me. It's God finding me as the lost sheep, the lost coin, etc. He's the initiator. He's done all the work to bring me into his family. I contribute nothing other than my sin, but he contributes everything to make me sinless.
There's just so much freedom when you realize it doesn't depend on you.
Yeah.
And everything you need has already been done, right? It all depends on Jesus, and it's like, well, he's mine, and I'm his, because he chose me. Like, well, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, and that's why Luther's On the Freedom of a Christian, I referenced it this last Sunday, just kind of willy-nilly. It hadn't been in my notes. You didn't write about it, but I was like, just out of nowhere, I'm like, let's talk about on the freedom of a Christian. But it was a freedom word.
Right.
Freedom from the crushing weight of my sin, and then freedom for love for my neighbor.
Right.
Right? I've been set on the greatest mission possible because of the love of God for me, and through me now to the world. I've been set free. It's a great word. And especially as American Christians, we love freedom.
We do love freedom.
So it's the best type of freedom possible. So if people are coming to worship at any of our campuses on Reformation Sunday, what can they expect, and or what should they wear?
Red. If you've got any red, you put that puppy on. Get ready to hear probably some version of Mighty Fortress. But most of all, get ready to hear good news. I mean, that's every Sunday. But get ready to hear some good news.
All right. So good. So celebrate how good it is to be a Christian, and specifically this Sunday, a Christian and a Lutheran tradition, standing on the shoulders of those who have gone before us. It's a good day. Go and make it a great day. We'll be back next week with another episode of CG Live. Great job, Pastor Michael.
Let's go.